Well, hello everyone. How y'all doing? I've been doing great. I've been taking advantage of a free weekend with the podcast being off to try making some kind of cartoon versions of me for the thumbnails. So I might be trying those out. I might try that thing where half of you get the normal one and half of you get the cartoon one just to see which one works better. But if you see the cartoon in the thumbnail, why don't you comment below and let me know what you think about it. This is from Neil Turkowitz. He's an IP lawyer. And yes, he's part of this latest anti-AI fray that I've made several videos about. And if you've been watching my videos, you know all about fair use. In fact, I just gave you a big crash course in it. And I told you, didn't I, that if you went through that, you'd know more about IP than most lawyers. Well, here's going to be proof of it. Because this guy's an IP lawyer, and he either doesn't understand fair use or he's lying through his eye teeth. There really is no third option here. Because he starts off saying, let's begin by unmasking the false premise underlying much of the celebration of fair use. That is, the basic objective of the copyright system is to achieve a balance between the public interest on one hand and the interest of private copyright owners on the other. When he says public interest, he's talking about the First Amendment. And see if he ever even talks about the First Amendment or free speech through here. And as I've explained before, this is really about the butting up of two constitutional principles. One is Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8, which is copyright. And the other is the First Amendment, which is free speech and free press. So what happens when there's a conflict between these two? You have free speech, you can say whatever you want, but what if you have to say it's copyrighted? Where's that line drawn? So this is clear and explicit in the Constitution. Calling it a false premise is the height of intellectual dishonesty. Just right off the bat. Terrible. In this formulation, the public interest, notice how he puts public in quotes, that's what he thinks about you, is exclusively defined as the ability to get copyrighted materials as cheaply as possible, with free obviously being the best since it is the cheapest option. If you watch my video, you know that it has nothing to do with how you get them. You can get them cheaply, you can get them for free, you can download them from a pirate site. It's not about how you get them. It's about how you use them. That's why it's fair use, not fair getting. I'm going to have to drill this into people's heads, I see. It's about how you use it. If you use it for a non-infringing purpose, if what you're using it for is fair use, it doesn't matter how you got it. And the courts have said that over and over and over again. And they want to make an exception for AI. Many of the organizations celebrating fair use would have you believe that copyright protection and the public interest are diametrically opposed, because they are. In any decent reading of the Constitution, an amendment should override anything contradictory that comes before it. So, for example, when the 13th Amendment was passed, it invalidated all of those prior clauses about slavery. It didn't have to go through and say, oh, this particular clause is repealed and that one's repealed and that one's modified. No, it said no more slavery. And just by saying that, it automatically invalidated all of that. Free speech is in an amendment, and an amendment should override the body of the Constitution. So the First Amendment should override completely Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. Insofar as it stops you from making the expression you want to make, just because someone else made that expression before you. That isn't how the courts saw it, because they said, oh, well, it was just so close that we can consider them the same. It was a complete cop-out. But there is absolutely a contradiction between Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8 and the First Amendment. This is merely a rhetorical device and is a complete fallacy, oh my God. Groups like EFF, Public Knowledge, and Recreate employ emotive rhetoric in an attempt to demonize copyright. Yeah, how dare those free speech and human rights groups actually stand up for free speech and human rights? And to suggest that copyright protection is somehow a special interest. How can anyone look at what's going on right now and not think it's a big special interest? Because it's all about the big cartels, the MPA, the RIAA, and all of them. They're the ones exercising control of everything. And every time they get a little bit of competition, every time there ends up being some alternative for people to get their creative output out to the people in a way that doesn't use their soulless crushing factories to do so, they're all over it, just like this guy is. It absolutely is a special interest. So all this is poisoning the well. That's all he's doing. They say that they care about creativity and that fair use is critical to the interests of society, because it is. Copyright owners agree, but unlike most declared champions of fair use, not only do we care about creativity as an abstract concept, but we actually care about creators and preserving the creative process. Then why do you support the cartels that crush them underfoot? Publishers rake in billions out of books. How much of that do authors get? Pennies. It doesn't take that much to print a book. Printing a book's cheap. Even cheaper if it's an ebook and you get it online. They'll charge you $10, $15 for it. Author gets a few pennies. They're giving it to you basically for no cost to them when it's an ebook, or for very little costs when it's a printed book. And they're only giving the tiniest fraction of that to the authors. Recording artists really get gypped because they get basically nothing out of record sales, out of the online sales and streaming and everything. They pretty much have to go do concerts all year round in order to actually make some money for themselves. This is horrible. It's a horrible system, and it's what copyright enables. And what's the result of all of this? A bunch of soulless music that all sounds the same. Just do that same beat, do that whoop whoop over again, run it through an auto-tuner, and Bob's your uncle. And that's just what's being forced down. I mean, yes, there's some good music being made. I'm sure a lot of you can comment and say, hey, here's this really good song, or here's this really good album. Yes, there's good stuff that's being made. But it's predominantly the mass-produced tripe, and that's what gets pushed. Just like with movies. What are we getting? Yet another soulless remake after soulless remake that's really badly done and is just a cash grab. Whereas there are really talented filmmakers out there that are making some really good movies that can't get the attention they deserve. Why? Because of copyright. Beethoven was one of the greatest composers everywhere. None of his stuff was copyrighted, because you could not get a copyright on music in Germany at that time. And that's why there are so many great German composers. Bach, Mozart, Haydn. How many British were there? I mean, there were some. They just weren't outputting that much because of copyright. They do like one symphony and then rest on their laurels. That's what we're seeing. If you care about creativity, you want to get rid of copyright, and that's all there is to it. We recognize that the creative process indeed is an evolutionary one, and that present creators draw upon past expression for inspiration. But standing on the shoulders of giants doesn't require misappropriation, and anyone who tells you differently is selling something. Are they? Maybe they're selling The Sower by Van Gogh, which was a complete ripoff of a painting by Jean-Francois Millet. And you can see all of that. I've pointed these out before. There are tons of examples of great artists completely copying works of others. See, now we've got this copy of ownership. Millet would own The Sower. Van Gogh, you can't paint The Sower because Millet already painted it. All right, a little of this crap goes a long way. Let's skip down to... One could look at consumptive fair use as being permitted where the costs of enforcing the copyright are not justified in relation to the limited prejudice of the value of the work. What, you think that's what this is about? You think this is about cost benefit? No! This is about our basic human rights! It's not a cost benefit. God. Many of those that celebrate fair use draw upon the sympathetic environment for considering expressive and transformative uses, i.e., the use of protected materials in reporting, commentary, satire, parody for the production of new creative works, but apply them to consumptive uses that lack social value. Social value enters into the equation nowhere. Social value has nothing to do with it. But see, people like Turkowitz want to be the gatekeepers. They want to be able to say what has social value and what does not, solely so they can censor you. And if you've been an online creator for any time, you've experienced this. You've experienced the copyright bullshit. Something you did that was completely original, or something you used that was public domain, and they shut you down for it anyway. That's what it's all about. Inhibiting your output. All of the strikes, all of the shadow banning, that's what it's all about. When was the last time that someone was inspired by fair use? Today? Every day? 'Cause it happens all the time? And like I said, when you have a time and a place where symphonies don't have copyright protection, or public Shakespeare, none of Shakespeare's plays were copyrighted. You could not get a copyright on plays at that time. What did he do? He kept cranking it out. And he got inspiration from all over the place. Hamlet was not an original story. He got that from somewhere else. Romeo and Juliet, not original. That was a story that was already existing. And he just told his version of it. Oh, one of the big ones now, Disney. How did they get to where they are? They took prior art, Cinderella, Snow White, all of those, and made new works based on it. And now they would deny other people the right to do what they did. Fair use doesn't enthrall us. It doesn't capture our imaginations and transport us to places far away or tucked away deep in our memories. Speak for yourself, Turkowitz. Celebration of fair use is actually a celebration of the benefits of fueling original creative expression, for if we fail to produce cultural artifacts worth accessing, fair use becomes irrelevant. We have no interest in accessing that which we don't value. But value is subjective. It's not up to you and the other gatekeepers of art to say what has value. We decide for ourselves what we value. And that's why we need to stop people like you. And here again, we have the same fallacy that I just spent 40 minutes explaining in a video. Fair is contextual, and use assumes a desire to access. No, use is about using, not accessing. The accessing is for the purpose of the use. It's fair use, not fair accessing. And therefore, if what you do is a fair use, if it is not infringing, it doesn't matter how you accessed it. It doesn't matter how you got it. If we can succeed in allowing creators to earn a living from their craft, remember this. Always remember this. This is not about earning a living or enthralling people or whatever. The purpose of copyright is to promote the progress of science and useful arts. That's what it's for. Not rewarding artists for their hard work, not allowing them to earn a living. Those are all incidental. Promote the progress of science and useful arts. If you're not doing that, then your copyright is invalid. And it's good that the courts are starting to recognize that. We will have greatly advanced the public interest. And you see what he did? This is why he did the whole public interest thing. Because before, public interest was just a placeholder for the First Amendment. And now he's shifting it around. Oh, now we see this is the real public interest, is allowing the big content cartels to crunch out their mulch. That's the public interest. No! The public interest side is freedom of speech! And produced a wealth of accessible cultural materials that enrich present and future generations. Now that would be something to celebrate again. Something else to remember about what it says in Article 1, Section 8, Clause 8. It's supposed to be for limited times. Limited. Well, now it's limited to 70 years after the author has died. Or 95 years after the big corporation created it. Are you honestly going to tell me that a novelist isn't going to bother writing a novel if he thinks it might be public domain after he died? Or even when he's older? That's not how it's supposed to be. This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. And that insanity is what makes it more important to support fair use and to oppose the gatekeepers and the censors like Neil Turkowitz. Fair use is your human rights. Nothing more, nothing less. Always remember that. Thank you so very much for watching. Comments for the Comic God, shares for the Share Throne. Please hit like, subscribe, and the bell. And of course, donate.bogosity.tv. Keep me doing what I do with one-time donations or becoming a supporter at Patreon, Subscribestar, or Discord. Get the videos early and ad-free. Participate in the live streams and the AMAs. Thank you so very much. Until next time, stay strong and be free.